rest of the world. And this is a particular time that we have to make our communications. Because they're dumping their T-bombs, and we have to harmonize to kill them.
I was on a phone call last Wednesday. I need to get a hold of you.
My dog out.
Give you tell you about those bonds.
Yeah.
This is from Canada. The guys that are working with the Chinese and the
Yeah.
Japanese and helping.
Yeah, it was mentioned.
Bringing help to us after everything collapses here.
Yeah.
So we need to talk.
All right.
We need to get together.
Right on. Now, take notes if you got them. And we gotta keep in mind too, House Joint Resolution 192. Now, when we were generally discussing, you know, what they were doing, why they do, you don't call them crazy, and you don't say they don't know or that they're confused, because this is what they're operating on. You know, even back to the point, you don't call them racist, you don't call them prejudice. This is what they're operating on. And of course, one of the major things that we all want to do when we have any claim or counterclaim, you want to be specific, and you don't give emotional arguments, give law arguments, law and history, because that establishes fact, because that's what's recognized in world court. All right. Now, reason for this is to give everyone a fundamental. This is a synopsis, right? And this is what's in operation. Now, I expand on this in the lesson book, but these are just for you to take notes now. And so all of your state corporate entities and the courts, which are not courts, there are actually private commercial tribunals on the state, right, under feudal law. This is what they're operating on. In other words, unum sanctum, dum diversus, Romanus Pontifex, Interpretera Divina, Secret Treaty of Verona, Cessacue Act, they collectively comprise what they call the doctrine of discovery. And keep in mind, you can also use the argument in any relationship with them, with Pope Francis signing off or ending the Christian doctrine of discovery as of December the 14th of last year, right? And so you have that argument too, which means that they can't hide behind this anymore. And they know that most people aren't aware of it because the people are trained to argue civil rights, racism, prayer, and march, and protest. All those things where they set up COINTELPRO operatives to discredit the people or to create problems so they can hurt people. And this is what they're operating on. And so whenever there's any action by any municipal bodies, politics, etc., this is their guidebook. These are their guide manual. We can expand on them later, but I want you all to get this now so you can do a little research and also comprehend that you never make excuses for them. These things are not discussed, but this is what they're operating on. And their arrogance, the arrogance that they usually display, is because they're aware of the fact that the average person never thinks of this. They always think about prejudice, racism, marching and praying, you know, the way they're trained by their COINTELPRO leader guys. And of course, for the COINTELPRO leader guys not to talk about this, they get a 501c3 kickback. Skull and Bones, 501c3 kickback. And keep in mind, also keep in mind the Freedmen's Bureau, and that's when they set up. You all got that so far?
Almost. Not quite yet.
All right. Now, the Sister-QV Act, this is the basis upon which they're claiming the estate, and that's also what's used with the feudal deeds, and why it's also claimed as abandoned, because the people never claimed them in any allodial manner. And of course, with the unum sanctum and dum diversus, this is the basis upon which the popes have claimed the bodies, the labor, and all property of all the Asiatic Africans of the planet. And this is the basis, again, of the arrogance that policemen have and lawyers have. And when you're looking at the original title of nobility clause of the American Constitution, being original article of Amendment 13 with its 20 sections, this is why no lawyers are allowed to hold office by constitutional law in any jurisdiction of the United States. And that's why they set up the coup in 1871, set up the democracy order in order to overthrow the government. And that's why the barristers of England, who are actually deputy knights for the popes of Rome, to carry this out. This is what's been their role. And of course, when we're discussing those attitudes in the tribunals, the human trafficking tribunals, this is where their attitude comes from.
Yeah, I got that.
All right? Now, and then of course, the 14th Amendment is where they create the courts, the claim, on the people through the courts. And so the 14th Amendment is a de facto ens legis, and there's a social engineering program. It's actually a political program, because it was never properly ratified, and it's really not a part of the American Constitution. It is injected as the bylaws within the 1871 coup. That's how they got away with this. All right? And most people are not aware that there's two constitutions in operation. Now, the Constitution for the United States of America is a republic. The Constitution of the United States of America is not a constitution, but simply adopted articles by the private corporation that was registered in France on human trafficking. That's why people are denied due process. Are we clear? Mm-hmm. So all of their instruments that they create are created under the democracy order, and not even with the Constitution. What they did is that they adopted the original Constitution as articles and the Bill of Rights as bylaws. It's a business, all right, which it is private, and they don't really have to. So that doesn't. This is why, like you see, a lot of times when people start arguing Constitution, they'll say you can't use the Constitution as a defense, you're not a party to it. That's what they're really talking about. See, well, people don't know what they're really saying when they're saying that, but that's actually what they're saying. Because it's private. And see, so those tribunals and their activities are really all private. That is the basis of the entire corruption. And this is why whenever you're communicating with any of them in any of those venues, that they don't have the delegation of authority or quo warranto posted on any of the doors, because they're private trafficking venues. They're not lawful courts. And they're not judges, they're administrators over the trust of the abandoned estate under the courts that they created through the 14th Amendment for chattel operations.
But they're saying we abandoned our state, right?
They're claiming that's why you got to declare your nationality to even get back to even having a legal argument. If you understand the nature of it, you understand the homicide case, and you understand the Dred Scott case. But logically, when people look at, most people who don't know history and law will immediately go to the emotional, moral, ethical argument rather than look at the fact that it's dealing with status. But then they're also dealing with status undisclosed, you see.
Yeah.
And so now, so emphasis must also be put on the fungible instruments. See, because all of the instruments that they create are actually pseudo-fungible, but they're not really fungible. This is where the law comes in, where you can get them on fraud on anything. If they ask you for a penny, you got them. But what most people don't even think to argue that, because most people start themselves talking money, and then they've lied, so you have a neutral, even though no one argues it. Because remember, the whole relationship with you is to get you to say things, and then they take you on your word, but then they lie. So this is where Skull and Bones set up the General Education Board in order to set up connotative linguistics so that people would start making any legal argument with connotative linguistics, which would make you wrong in the first place, and then they have the discretion whether or not they want to accept what you say or not. They can make it be what it is, because what you say is what it is. It is, always is. You know, now, so the gold and the silver comprises lawful money under the United States Republic. Now, this is why when you look at House Joint Resolution 192, when they come out and admit that they abrogated the gold clause, they're telling you bluntly that they overthrew the Constitution. But by that time, they pretty much had things gripped, if you get the point. But people still have remedy, and the remedies go back to the Constitution. This is why even when because everything, all crimes are made commercial due to the fact that it's private, do you understand? Like, and they started dealing with commercial codes because it's commerce, because they're trading humans, right? And so this is why when people started figuring it out a little bit, and they would use UCC 1-207, they changed it to 308. They switched things around because it is commerce, it's human trafficking. Now, when they make a claim against anyone, they actually are making a claim against the 14th Amendment ens legis, which is a corpse. This is why people are already considered dead when they walk into those venues. And then that reverts back to dum diversus and unum sanctum. So you gotta remember, when the magistrates are looking at people, that's what they're measuring by. People keep thinking due process and things like that. And remember, this is also when it talks about in propria persona in law. When they say, if you hire a lawyer for your defense, you've already given up your birthright, because a lawyer is an officer of the court. Your first obligation is to the court, not to the people. You know, and people who don't understand the history, it doesn't dawn on them that they're a piece of meat on an auction block. This is, again, you know, and also they accept when you pass the bar, you're in a foreign jurisdiction. You're in the middle of the ocean. And then they just capture you because it's booty and prize. Admiralty law.
Tom,
Yes.
question. Being as we are in their mind the fictional,
Yes, until you demonstrate that you're not.
Well, let me ask you, why do they want the fictional character?
Because they can't, because
to respond to
listen,
IRS.
Listen, but they're all part of it. You got to understand, the IRS is part of the order. The Internal Revenue Service is really the Inquisition Revenue Service under a different title. Do you understand?
But if we're dead, how do they want us to respond?
Well, this is the whole point. This is also why a lot of times when people talk and they don't qualify themselves, they'll tell them shut up. Because they're already considered dead since they walked in there. You know what I mean? Now this is again why they don't teach law and history together. And just like when we go over some words and legal phrases, we'll show people in propria persona, wardship, civil little mortus, minor, minority, all different terms that they've heard here and there but have never generally associated with themselves in relationship to society. And this is also where the 501c3 agreement of the priest spies comes in, because the people think they're loving Jesus and they're working for Rome. This is Article 3 of the Secret Treaty of Verona, which you see right there. All that, you know, is explained later in the book. And so the average person not being aware of that starts doing business in the world, never even dawning on them that this whole thing is corrupt from top to bottom. And that the reverends that they think love them are really spies. And they think they love Jesus because most of them can't read and don't know there's no J in Hebrew. Jesus is a password. You know, because then they don't know nothing about the Nicene Council. They don't know it's a control system. You know, and you can't convince them either. And so by them not rebutting, anything not rebutted, or any right not claimed is considered them waived or abandoned. Almost every action that you deal in any of those venues come under these two categories: default and abandonment. One way or another, a combination of the two. If you study any case law dealing with them, whereas people have not exercised international law, you know, whereas they argue diversity, you know, where they're in their proper person, it is always abandonment. Even all your foreclosures, if you check out all county records, foreclosures, 99% abandonment.
That's right.
Even when people are in the house, it's abandonment. What they don't understand is that those deeds are feudal instruments. And they are already in a state of reversion from the construct, unless you take it, put it in the state, accept the deed, and put it in an allodial trust. If you don't, it's abandoned. Now, and then people keep giving them fiat and then lying and saying that they're paying them because they think they have money. But ignorance of the law is no excuse. Article 1, Section 10 of the Constitution says that no debt can be satisfied without gold or silver. No state can pay any debts. And then people start saying they paid. They haven't paid. Those are debt notes, and it's private commercial paper. Therefore, it's never even yours. You're just renting to use it.
Yeah.
This is where the tax comes in. It's undisclosed, but people need to understand that this is how things operate. And what we need to do is get beyond arguing the immorality of it and look at the function of it. Look at the function of the machinery and start breaking it. Because that's the only way out of it. In other words, the only way out of the matrix is to unplug. And people, and what you find, a lot of people, when they start finding out the corruption, they start trying to, quote unquote, get money. As you say, you're not allowed to have money. They start looking, instead of fighting on the principle of the fraud and restoration of the estate, they never think that. They think they're going to get their hand on this bottomless pit account once they get a hold of that QSIC number, because that's the controlling number on the stock market. Because all these instruments are on the stock market: birth certificates, marriage certificates, original manufacturers, titles of origin, etc. And then therefore, all your labor, all the seeds and eggs of women are already claimed by the Pope under Dom Diversis. And so people don't know that these are connected because they don't know history. And so all operations, and this is why I like to say, for instance, you have the agreement of the gangs of New York, which is the world's largest gang.
Right.
They start buying these blue suits. And they're private and start claiming to be officers and going around robbing people and stealing from them and backing up the corporations. That's what they're there for. Look at any stare decisis, any res judicata cases, and you'll see all dispensation or all determinations when the argument is made that the policeman's first obligation is to the corporations and not to the people. Wow. And then people keep saying that the officer is supposed to protect my rights, even though they take an oath, or what is called an oath of ethics, to preserve the constitutional rights of the people. Yeah. But they're really talking about that second one, of which the people are not a party. See, that's that trick. You got to understand how they trick the people. And then the other deal is when they closed the Freedmen's Bureau, which we're not talking about in this point, but you must understand the 14th Amendment was constructed after they closed the Freedmen's Bureau. The Freedmen's Bureau was to restore the names, attributes, nationalities, and fundamental orientation back into the culture, and they're supposed to give the European names back, etc., which makes them stateless persons. And then they were supposed to colonize the people back onto their land between the Rocky Mountains and the Alleghenies, and you already know what that represents. Almost all the land back, and then give them 40 acres and a mule, and finance to back up for any buildings that they needed. That's where that 40 acres and a mule came from. People talk about the 40 acres and a mule, but they don't talk about the rest of it.
No, they don't.
And so people don't know the 3630 parallel issue and the closing of the Freedmen's Bureau. Now, what is being done in modern days since 1913, when Noble Drawley set up the old Canaanite temple, which became the Moorish Holy Temple of Science, and then became the Moorish Science Temple of America, the greater body of the restoration that was set forth in the Freedmen's Bureau was instituted within the Moorish Science Temple. That's where the nationalization principle comes in, and the restoration of the estate. And of course, just like they did with everything else, they infiltrated, and logically, unless someone really studies, many people are not aware of that because they think it's a religion. And it's the restoration of the state.
I got a question, Todd.
Yeah, go ahead.
To unplug, being I'm getting Social Security.
Yes.
For me to unplug.
That's a private contract, but that still belongs to you.
Yeah, but I mean, could they then order that once I tell my
no, that's still your estate. That's a contract. You hold them to that. It's still a private contract. Not only that, see, international law, this is another thing that people are not aware of. For the work that we're doing, for those of you who know, those who know, George knows because he knows what Rashid has been doing. I know. G knows, right? Mm-hmm. International law, they're supposed to be assisting you all.
Yes.
We opened the embassy.
Now, every year, they're supposed to put billions of notes aside, actually more, but that's what they do. And that is for the people of the land. They're supposed to, like, for any education is supposed to be paid for those from those funds. Any fundamentals that they need, food, clothing, and shelter, etc., the fundamentals, they're obligated by international law to cover that. Whoa.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Yes, they are. Now, this is why they are so adamant to try to keep our people in that black brand, because it takes them out of obligation. This is, again, you know why they probably did the coup, so they would not be obligated to honor the treaties. See, because the whole operation with Dom Diversus and Unum Sanctum is like they borrow your gold watch, right, to fund. Then when you try to turn your bond in, they kill you. Or they say the bond is no good. And this is what they've been doing to people from day one, and even countries. As a matter of fact, that pattern has not changed. And this is the basis upon which the BRICS nation evolved, and the Mint nations to this day as a countermeasure to the Pope's army, because they've used all their technology to murder. And, you know, anybody that got bonds can't get their gold back. You know, and what they've done, they've funded the United States Corporation Company, which is the military arm for the Vatican. You know, and also the euro under Unum Sanctum. This is why they're having problems now. This is why England has been shipping something like 30 tons of gold to China for the last 2 years, every month. Yep. And on end.
Repeat that. I'm sorry.
England, London. See, London. All right, like, you know what? Can you see the tag, the Washington D.C. tags? And you see, this is what you see. And then you see a bar and a bar like that. Yeah, Washington D.C. tags. Vatican, District of London, Washington D.C., the Trinity of the Inquisition operations. 3 bars, 3 stars, 3 bars. That's 666. Now, everybody knows that, except our people. Do you understand? Now, keep in mind, when the Europeans came into government, when the Moors brought them into government in North America, all of those were Renaissance men, like Jefferson, John Adams, Thomas Jefferson. They were not Christians, they were deists. That's why all of them must be Masons and have a Moorish fez secretly. Do you understand? That's why you see a lot of the congressmen take their oath on Jefferson Bible, and you see all of your politicians have a Jefferson Bible, because the Jefferson Bible was the uncontaminated one. Do you understand? Because they all know that the Jesus game was designed by the popes of Rome for control. Mm. Do you understand what I'm saying to you? Now, this is also, keep in mind, this is why they did the coup. The coup, so in 1871. Now keep in mind, the Congress adjourned. Congress adjourned. These things must be remembered by you so that you can understand other things that are done. So we look at timelines, you see? See, Congress adjourned the same day of 1861. The coup was in 1871. And that's when they converted. This is what they did. They converted unlawfully. They converted the republic into a democracy, which of course, unbeknownst to most people, this is anarchy. Do you understand? And then non-disclosed. So therefore, all legislation stopped being public law and became private law under feudal operations. This is where the people have been trapped. In other words, that's the bureaucratization of slavery. And logically, people who don't know history don't know that all legislation thereafter is dead. It's colored. But yet, because they keep saying Constitution, people keep thinking, oh, that's the law. No, it's not. You see the problem we have? And then people will tell you about God, Jesus, Muhammad, Moses, Buddha, and everything, and don't even know what's functioning with them every day. That's why you gotta understand this. Islam, go ahead.
Islam. So when you see P.L. that means private law. Then all right.
It could be public or private. That's why they'll do it like that, because they interchange them at their convenience, even though they don't have any authority. So I don't have any jurisdiction. This is why, if you look at Supreme Court cases, anybody that argues traffic cases and stuff like that, or some due process case, and they have a good lawyer, and very few lawyers will touch constitutional issues, right? And then you'll see the Supreme Court's issue statements like the state courts are declared incompetent. If you start studying case law, you see it all over the place. That's what it's based on. This is what the Clearfield Doctrine is based on. They just won't say that. It's just that when you look at the Clearfield Trust Company, even though that check was $24.60, they were arguing the principle. They spent all kind of fiat for lawyers to counter the government because they know this, meaning y'all do that to them. We ain't going for it. That's what the Clearfield Doctrine is. And this is why anybody in doesn't matter what kind of case it is, Clearfield Doctrine. Because anytime you deal with them on any level, you're not dealing with public officers. You're always dealing with private. It's no different than somebody coming from behind the counter at McDonald's, going in the back, washing their hands, putting on a blue suit that they bought down in the Army Navy store, come out with a gun, and start messing with people. That's exactly, not scenario, it's exactly what's been going on.
Is there any way to win?
Huh?
Is there any way to win? So on, brother. I'm sorry.
This is why. Let's talk. This is why it's important for the people to be in their proper person.
I'm feeling it.
Because it's the only way that you have an argument in law. If you're not in propria persona, you have no right of argument. And keep in mind, they already got a bottomry instrument called a birth certificate, and they've already claimed the eggs already before you were born from your mother. Under sanctum dum diversus. I mean, this stuff is already in place. Now, it's bureaucratized servitude, but that's what they're operating off of. Then what happens is our people start arguing, what's your name? Joe Smith. Your argument's over. You raise your argument is
Yeah,
over.
we're done. Yep.
Now, logically, the average person, that's not dawning on them that their status is dead. That's not what they're thinking. They're looking at the morality of this thing.
My brother. So when court starts, boom,
Yeah.
you're done as soon as he says,
Exactly.
who is it? You're done right there.
Most court cases are already determined before you walk in. Unless you have someone competent, really, that ain't gonna let them get away with it. Which is rare. Which usually, if you have yourself, or if you have maybe, if you're from another nation state, and they ain't letting them get away with it, and they'll argue diversity. And then they got to release them immediately. You know, and then sometimes they have to compensate, but they usually do that on the table, not for the public. Well,
I mean, cash changes hands when something like that happens for the most part, right?
well, it's never cash.
Never cash.
It's energy against the account of the estates. See, even our languages has to change. You're not allowed to have, well, you can use the word cash but it's still a misnomer. Do you understand what I'm saying? But always say fiat.
Yeah.
Or would you just, to be even safer in law, whenever you deal with them, a security instrument. Or surety bond. So they're all bonds, they're all surety bonds. See, you passed the Federal Reserve note, in your mind, you paid. They accept it as a gift and a surety bond.
Still there.
And because it's fiat, they take the claimant of the body who should have claimed the estate. That's how they pull you. That's why they say a name, which means corporation, all caps, and they put it all caps because they were addressing an estate.
So, if that's the case, if that's the case,
That is the case.
and,
Not if. Take the if off.
since
That's the
that's the case,
Since that's the case.
and they basically, taking your estate
Yes.
and the energy from it.
Now, slow down. Slow down. That's why the IRS has them OIDs for recoupment. But they don't tell you that. This is where we tell people to study House Joint Resolution 192, where they came out of the closet, meaning that Roosevelt, a lot of people who don't kind of know history and law, talk about Hope Roosevelt and the bank holiday, they don't put it in the context that he was backing up a step-by-step operations of dumb diverses. See, they did it in 1871. See, Congress adjourned Cena D. You gotta get clear in your mind. Get clear in your mind. What does that mean? Any organized bodies, politics, or corporate entity anywhere in the world, if they're adjourned Cena D, what does that mean? Silence is dangerous. So let's get this clear. When they're adjourned sine die, that means the United States ended. That means without day. That means the secretary did not call in the journal for adjournment of a meeting of the minutes. So when they read that off, that was it. So they called on the president. Called on the president. President didn't answer, Lincoln. Right? Adjourned sine die. Go. The United States is over.
Oh.
Do you understand? Now, so to back up, therefore, you understand, now Lincoln trying to hold the Union together, and he really has no authority because the United States was dissolved. That's one of the motives of why they killed him. See, you're not really even given all history. Do you understand?
Mm-hmm.
He executed that war unlawfully. Do you understand? If you know real history, you don't take what they tell you. Islam.
Islam. So, when we are dealing with these de facto individuals.
That's why they're de facto.
Okay,
So now let's, this is for everybody else. This is for everybody else. Right? De jure, de facto. De facto, de jure. Lawful, unlawful. Legitimate, the coup. Real, imposter. And this is what's been going on. If you understand these principles, your protocols almost are automatic in your mind. If you don't understand these principles, you start trying to look for some other secondary case law to support a right of process that was abandoned since 1871. That was abrogated. All of this, because this is what this constituted. What this constituted was, while they were battling with each other to try to maintain servitude and do all the little dirty stuff, it dawned on them that they abrogated any right to be in North America, because the Constitution is a treaty for them to do business at North America. And then Article 6 of the Constitution preserves the integrity of the supreme law. So you gotta keep this in mind. Article 6. All debts and contracts entered into before the adoption of this Constitution shall be binding against the United States under this Constitution as under the Confederation. And all treaties made, or which shall be made in pursuance thereof, shall be the supreme law of the land. And the judges in every state shall be bound thereby. And any laws or constitution of any state to the contrary, notwithstanding. So what's the supreme law of the land? What they did, they gave up their right of operations here, and the only thing standing is Treaty of Peace and Friendship. See what Obama was saying when he went to Egypt? You got to understand why he's saying certain things he said, and why at the same time Michelle went to the Alhambra, the last stronghold of the Moors, Dom Diversus, into Catera Divina. And then when they came back and they signed the rights of indigenous people, and then when they came to the doors and all the international community was taking pictures of them, and you see the Moorish flag the guy standing with the Moorish flag clear as day, that's the signal. You know, because he's a constitutional lawyer, and he's a national. You got to remember, he ain't black. You understand? So black man can't be president, because black man is Christian property.
Yeah.
He's a free man. Why do you think the Europeans don't like him? And he's the CEO of the corporation, not country. So when Trump and all them talking about he can't be president, and birth certificate, and it's not a country you're talking about. That's what silenced that. Because now you're dealing with international law violations. And you keep messing with them, it's an international suit. You see, so they kind of in a catch-22.
Islam.
Do-
So, I'm sorry. Islam. So when Romney said that people are corporations, he was basically telling the truth.
Yeah, that's what he's talking about. He's talking about the 14th Amendment. That's because they gave the corporation the designation of person. Corporations are persons.
So plain as day, he was telling the truth.
He said corporations are persons. And he was telling the truth. Now, people who don't know law, you know, and they don't know what they're talking about. But ignorance of law don't excuse you. Why? Because the law begins with you.
Islam.
Islam.
When you sat down, you got up and you quoted shall be the supreme. Remember the whole segment you quoted?
Article
Did you
6
read that
nothing.
from somewhere? I
No.
mean, brother, if we can learn, if I can learn that, I'll go ahead and report that.
See, listen. Let's deal with something. Third grade civics. Third grade. What's the supreme law of the land?
Constitution.
See? 7 articles, 10 Bill of Rights. Everybody's supposed to know that. That's the rules of the game.
Yep.
You see the point? But it shows you how we've been miseducated and also how we've neglected ourselves because we didn't relate to it. There's a mental disconnect, you see? Because the concept that people have, that they've been taught, that that belongs to the barristers of England. And only the lawyers of England can speak, which is the biggest fraud. Constitution's in place to keep government in check. It doesn't give you rights. It's to preserve the rights that you already have, which are unalienable, unless you abandon them by not claiming them. You see? Or if you're not in your proper person, and thus not descendable, and can't claim them. This is where they took the names and nationality and birthright and branded. So the brands, people think the brands is always a hot iron. No. Smith, Jones, and Johnson put on Asiatic Africans as a brand. In law, you can't transact business in another man's name and own anything. You're simply acting as agency, whether assigned or whether by your own action. Now, by your own action, they can charge you with fraud, but why charge you with fraud? They can take everything you own.
Yeah.
Go around telling them about, I don't say this in real Bible. Well, they come get your shit.
Salam, my brother.
Huh?
You know what slapped me in the face just now? You remember when you and me were in Washington?
Yeah.
We went there, and you were up there. You were teaching. That brother got up in the back. He said, "I gotta go." He said, "I'm not from here." He said, "I was in California," but he said, "I am African." He said, "I am not an American citizen. I was in jail on gun charges. 10 days. They came and just let me out." He didn't. He said,
Because he was a national. He got to understand
Yeah.
the fact that he does, meaning that when it doesn't dawn on people why certain things take place. Because it's automatic, when you're a national in law, automatically Article 3, Section 2. Automatically. It's
Which is
diversity.
what?
It's diversity.
Diversity of citizenship.
It's automatically, why do you think they denationalize the people? And then start teaching them their crayons. They go out in the world, I'm a light skin, orange skin, black. And then my aunt is a Negro.
I see.
And then my daddy, he's a dark skinned colored man. And then my uncle, a black man. That's denationalization. They have no standing in law whatsoever. Civil Liberty Mortuus are dead. Dred Scott. What was the issue with Dred Scott? If people look at the Dred Scott case, the arguments was not so much the substance of the argument. The issue always was
Plaintiff in error.
legal status. Everybody talking about prejudice, racism, territorial. That the Sanford family took to Missouri territories and the state of Missouri was a free state and therefore he should be free. And the argument was, didn't matter where you went. The issue is legal status. And everybody talking about racism. And when a black man be free. That's not what the argument was. But people get caught up in these paradigms. You understand the concepts of all. You see? And if they look at the Amistad case, which is in the same nature, you understand why they had to release those Asiatics. Why? Because they were international, they were nationals. You can't, that's a violation of international law. Do you understand? And if you really, to put it in context, in modern times, contemporary times, when Facebook went IPO a couple of years ago, right? Zuckerberg's partner, right, 2 days before it went IPO, when Switzerland nationalized. And they had to give him all his fiat back, because they took, what, a couple billion from him? right? And anybody that understands law would understand what he did and why he did it. People who don't know, it wouldn't dawn on them why he did that 2 days before it went IPO. Because if he didn't, and he's running around calling himself white man, he lost 2 point some odd billion. Because remember, they took on the white party with the Whiggamore party, 1854 to 1863. And so people start calling them white people. They're not white people, they're Europeans. Because international law recognizes nations, doesn't recognize code systems set up by Carlos Linnaeus for Christian property. Woo. See, the color code system was set up by Carlos Linnaeus and Blumenbach for Christian colonial property. This is how you can tell nationals from Christian property. A national will say, Nigerian or Zimbabwean, you know, Egyptian, Egyptian, something like that. And they all in a group, and then the other guy says, I'm black. You automatically, he's separated, he gets the nigger treatment.
Yeah.
They might do the Rodney King on him. It's just how it works. And for these people to know Jesus, God, Allah, and Moses, they should have figured this out yet. They ain't figured it out yet. They don't want to honor their mothers and fathers. It's on them, because that's where the law comes from. See, because when you look in the Universal Declaration of Independence, you see nature's law and nature's God. The only way you can get back to that principle is via the common law to get to that. And the common law can only be used when one is in one's own proper person and has a tie or connection demonstrable to the ancient traditions and customs of archaic and immemorial antiquity to your bloodline. Therefore, you must be identified. You start talking crayons, you just abandoned your estate. This is what the branding system, how it functions. You see? And you got to know that. So even though the Europeans operating under color, everything that he's doing is not really wrong. It's just that the people aren't educated. Do you understand what I'm saying? And so the people are violating themselves for lack of knowledge. So they don't know that these stars, that's the Vatican, District of London, Washington, D.C. That's why each one of them have their own sovereign flag. They're flying right there on the parkway in Philadelphia. It's not hidden. There it is. They don't hide it.
And they're flying in Philadelphia right now.
Sure. Ignorance of law is no excuse. We were talking earlier. It's just like when you look at the Bible, where people try to get out of this information and say, well, I'm into the Bible. The Bible says, how can you claim the love of God whom you do not see,
yes,
and love not your brothers and sisters whom you see every day?
Yeah.
That same principle converts into civilization. How can you claim to be worshiping gods that you do not see and you don't even know the law that's in front of you that runs society? Same principle don't change. That's why ignorance of the law is no excuse. People don't know that. That's why, because it's the common law that supersedes the legislated law or the ens legis.
Always, right? Always.
And that's why, and keep in mind this branding system, all of this was done under what you call canon law. This is why when you look in House Joint Resolution 192, you'll see it was done under a double stock trust, under the canon law as a pattern, as a template, as a model. So how do you trump the canon law? You trump the canon law, the Roman law, and other systems of law by the common law. That's why the Constitution has the nature of common law. That's why barristers of England can't be in government. That's again why they changed original Article of Amendment 13 and the 20 sections, and they only display 2. Why? Because that's what this is about. And logically, if you don't know that, you're operating, because it's undisclosed, you're operating like, oh, they ain't doing stuff right. Of course not.
So
They don't have a constitution.
we can throw it out then, right?
Well, then why do you think they do what they do? Because they're not legitimate. They're colorful. They're de facto. And people keep on thinking in their mind, that they're legitimate. And so they have false expectations, and the people start giving them authority, starting with calling them officer. And because the trust is yours, the estate is yours, it's what you call a verbal trust. And you just assign them. Now they administer your estate. But on it, they have all capital letters. They're talking about a trust, not you. But you're talking like they're talking to you. Which is really not what they're doing. So they say, are you Freddie Johnson? Yeah. Oh, all right. He said, let me see that paper. He said, all capital letters. Oh, you're talking about an estate, a trust that you made. Oh, so now you're a minister. Did you, are you the executor of the estate? Apparently you're acting trustee. So what I want you to do, what's your name? My name is George Veeble Putz. No, you're not a judge. You're administering a estate. You're an administrating clerk, aren't you? Oh, what I want you to do, I want you to dismiss the case. I've been here all day. I missed this Spider-Man movie. My girlfriend's pissed. Dee didn't cook the fish. And I'm upset. And they towed my car while I was out here. Let me give you an allodial course schedule. And watch them start telling you to leave the building and we'll talk later and all that kind of stuff. Because now you're talking right. Because that's exactly what's really going on. If you're talking any kind of other way, you're already incompetent. Because it's not what's going on. They're making charges against your estate. And you're not speaking for the estate. Then they accuse you of abandoning the estate. Then they're saying you left a burden on them, so they ain't going to claim your body as ransom until it's satisfied. That's what the bond is. Every time they make a charge or a case, right, there's a bond that goes with it all the time. And also, when they, they have a case in court, something like that, they got a case in court, and the prosecutor talking sandwiches and stuff. And with the case of Freddie, Pee Wee Herman's cousin, sister, come on down. You come on down and say, and they really tied their suits together on Thursday, which they're not supposed to do, trying to run a race. Did you do that? You're not supposed to go, I object. Where's the bond so it can be satisfied against my estate? And who's the living, breathing, sentient person, living man or woman that makes claim against my estate? Because I'm the living, breathing, sentient man. And not any straw or nom de guerre that you may have. Plus, I want discovery. Let me see what you got. I want to see what you're reading from. That's how he's supposed to talk to them. And so you see all capital, it's all capital, you're trying to make charge. You're trespassing. But you better dismiss this right now, unless your bond can cover this. That's how you're supposed to talk to them. But people are usually intimidated and don't go there. But that's it. You understand what I'm saying? And they know most people aren't going to go there because most people don't know that that is a trafficking court. It is a tribunal for commercial operations only, under private operations. It's not public. That's why they got to get you to come in the middle of the water, come over the bar, and they claim that area. And now you're in the middle of the water. Now you're booty and prize. And under booty and prize, trading with the Enemy Act, look that up too, then they claim your rights. And the fact that you cross it, they say that you abandon your rights. Yeah. And then of course, now keep this in mind again, being Moorish American, right? People of the land, not only are you sovereign, true, they're obligated by treaty. It's an Article 4 treaty. Passed. Ain't you a Mason? I know you got to fast, so let's not act like you don't know what's up. That's how you got to talk to them. Because they already know. They operate, as long as you don't demonstrate that you know, you've abandoned. And if you don't have the guts to speak for your rights, you've abandoned them.
just,
Because they're about human trafficking, nothing else. Go ahead, George.
So, when you tell them you're sovereign and
You know, you don't tell them you're sovereign.
I mean, well,
You tell them you're national.
you tell them
No,
you're
no,
national.
slow down, because we gotta be clear.
Here's the
When you tell them that you're national, the sovereignty isn't automatic. See, you don't argue sovereignty, because that's not, this, because I want you to get clear to you.
Okay.
You don't argue sovereignty. You present yourself as a living, breathing, sentient man, people of the land, with all substantive rights preserved and preserved by Constitution and treaty, pre-1871, which I know that's what you're operating under, and you're bound by treaty. You're operating on my land. Now, if you're confused about any other claims of jurisdiction that you may have, let me produce your quo warranto. And I know you know the Clearfield Doctrine, because I know you're doing private operations here. You know that's a violation of international law. Can your bond cover these violations? Did you make it trespasses against me? That's how you're supposed to be talking. That's how you have to be thinking all the time. Don't even get into the subject that they're talking about, because the subject is jurisdiction. First issue in law is status, then jurisdiction / venue, then adjudication. If you watch, they always violate process. They assume status, they assume jurisdiction, and immediately start adjudicating. Violation of process. So you object. Well, now you know better than that, Freddie. Maybe you really shouldn't be doing that. Can your bond cover this trespass? And are you ready to go to international court? Because the American Constitution is an international document. It's an international venue. Oh, now, if you want to admit for the record that you're in dishonor, you can do that too. You know, because Amendment 4, you know, and they took my papers and stuff, you're already violated already. Well, you did stuff. Well, who's the accuser? Corpus electi. This guy. What's his name? Unidentified? Oh, that's hearsay. Matter of fact, that's a misuse of the court. Did you let somebody testify and they haven't identified themselves, they haven't put an affidavit, sworn affidavit, or Amendment 4, they must have a sworn affidavit, because perjury must be traced. The person who speaks must be reachable. You see? I mean, just this is fundamental stuff. If you understand constitutions and treaties and why they exist, this stuff, you know, no one have to tell you. It's automatic. No different. You know, like we playing, you know, basketball in the, you know, on the corner and stuff like this. And right. You know, you ain't gotta be a pro to know when somebody foul you, or when you dribble past the line and you gotta transfer the ball. Really? Come on. Like you don't know. And this is why you have 7 articles, 10 Bill of Rights. They combine as the Constitution. In Article 6, which is called your supremacy clause, right? Mm-hmm. Protects the people from any public office or officer or one who claims that office from abridging the people's rights. There you go. They have limited jurisdiction, and all jurisdictions must be what? Must be declared. That's called the quo warranto. And so therefore, a congressman, you know, can't sit up there and act like he's a judge, judicial. And then the judicial office can't act like they're executive. And then the executive can't legislate. And then the judicial officer can't legislate law. And they've all been bleeding across those lines because they're operating under the feudal order. That's how they've been getting away with it. No one challenges them. And then the people keep calling them officer, which is an immediate assignment. See, people don't understand that trust can be written and they can be oral.
Oh, I knew that.
Oh yeah, you call an officer, you just assign them. They accept your offer and then they start exercising their power. Because they're not officers. Officers must be elected. Officially. And if they have the office, they're supposed to display their what? Their charter and bond. It's called a DOAO. The charter is the license. The bond is the insurance. That's across the board everywhere. And guess what people don't ask for?
No.
That means the waive their right in there. And they start talking substance, start getting into subject matter. When you're in subject matter, that means you've waived your right to establish or record your status, which is the foundation before anything else, because that determines the capacities and incapacities of you exercising rights, particularly in relationship to third parties and the state. It's all over. You know, and so if these fundamentals are remembered, not forgotten, fundamental protocols become obvious. And this is why civics is taught, you know, like from 2nd, 3rd grade. Right? But of course, in our communities, none of that is emphasized. As a matter of fact, it's de-emphasized to cause disassociation. And then, of course, law and history is not taught together, which makes the people automatically handicapped. It is no different than putting people in a race with one leg tied, you know, tied up, or one arm tied behind their back, both of which would make them unbalanced.
Islam, my brother. Any officer, this applies to anybody who claims to be an officer of the Corps.
Exactly, they are not. It's a private. It is no different than persons or personnel of the Federal Reserve or IRS claiming the Treasury, and the people think they're talking the United States Treasury. And it's a private treasury. Clearfield. See the point?
Everything comes down to the Clearfield Doctrine.
That's what the Clearfield Doctrine is really all about. But they're not going to explain it to you. That's why I did that article on the Clearfield Doctrine, for people to have a, you know, because I know that, you know, see, because people have to purge. They have to be baptized. They have to be cleansed. Because their mind is contaminated, not of their own will, but of those who have misled them. And so the people are destroyed for lack of knowledge. You know, then they go to the fox to guard the hen house. I gotta get a barrister. I don't think you should. Yeah, but they know the law. You know, the law is the Constitution and the treaty. What are you talking about? In 3rd grade, did they tell you this is the supreme law of the land? If it's the supreme law of the land, does there something else that supersede that?
Help me, Bob.
It says the judges of every state shall be bound thereby. Come on, all right, we're out to lunch. You know what I mean? We're out to lunch. We don't pay attention to details. Very fundamental details. And they take advantage of our people. And much, not just because of their ignorance, because they usually are not, they're already not in their proper person. And if you're not in your proper person, you don't have an argument anyway. This is how that works. That's how that paradigm operates. And that's its legal function. That's why they did it. So speak loud so everybody can hear.
So you say not.
So you say not in your proper person. Could you elaborate on that?
Oh, all right. I mean,
National law.
let me do a little demonstration so you can see for yourself what's on, right? Now, I want you to pay attention to, again, while we keep telling people that law and history go together, because they need to be aware of their obligation to themselves and to their families. Now, see right here, in propria persona, in one's apostrophe S, possessive, right? Own, possessive. To the point of redundancy. In propria persona, in one's own proper person. It is a rule in pleading that pleas to the jurisdiction of the court must, does it say shall, or you could, or if you feel like it? It says must be pled. In what? In propria persona. That means that status must be in place. So if you had to plead before the court, you better be in your proper person. Why? Because if pleaded by an attorney, they admit the jurisdiction. As an attorney is an officer of the court, and he is presumed to plead after having obtained leave which admits the jurisdiction, which means you can't even challenge the jurisdiction. So you're already claimed. Unless, but still you got to exercise it. You're in your proper person. So what you go in there talking about? I'm Dred Scott. Now you understand the Dred Scott case?
Absolutely.
Dred Scott? Asiatic African? You Englishman? And then people don't get it. Right? Let's look at this. All right, so let's look at this. Watch this. Keep that in mind, right? And then I want you to look at this. I want you to look at status. When you get a chance, I want you to look up the Dred Scott case, study it intently, break it down, use a marker, all right? Now, status. Now remember, in law books, they usually will remove a lot of conjunctions, etc., like that, to condense. And so when you read, you put them back in, preps and conjunctions, stuff like that. So status is the standing, the state, or the condition. Then it gives you law case for reference, right? Status is the legal relation of the individual to the rest of the community. Law case. Status concerns the rights, the duties, the capacities, and the incapacities which determine a person to a given class. Status is a legal, personal relationship, not temporary in its nature, nor terminable at the mere will of the parties with which third persons and the state are concerned. And while the term implies relation, it is not a mere relation. Why? Because status also means a state. And what? Because it signifies the conditions or circumstances in which one stands with regard to his property. Yeah. See where foreclosures come into? You're not your proper person. Even your estate is already claimed by the state. Because your status is dead. That's where you get civil iter mortuus. So let's go to civil iter mortuus. All right? So I want you to give concepts, and I want you to understand that all people in law already know this. When our people come before them, they be talking about racism. It's their status. It's prejudice. It's status. You're a black man. You declaring your status. So if you're not your proper person, you don't have no legal argument. Because that determines your capacities and your incapacities in regard to third persons in the state. And even when people talk about like, oh, I know some Moors, that's third party. They're speaking of themselves third party, status is dead. Yep. Like Chinese talking about, oh, I know some Chinese. Well, who are you? I'm a yellow guy. Status is there. And we don't get it. And one of the hardest things to do is make our people respect law. They are outside the law, they're lawless. Outlaws. And then they get the outlaw treatment called the Christian Black Codes, and now they're mad at the world. Shouldn't be. Because they must honor their mothers and fathers, that their days may be longer upon the earthland, their estate, and by us. Dr. Naila was doing her thing as usual.
Yay.
Look, I would have to go and do some,
Y'all?
he needs swallow it, yeah, he's saying that.
Go ahead, man, knock it out.
Can I fix anybody else?
Doctor, you ain't no doctor.
Now, you will be able to put a lot of this stuff together once you understand that status is everything and everything begins with status. You see? And this is again, they know that when the people walk in there claiming to be black, that their status is already dead.
Yep.
They walk on the court and they got Smith, Jones, or Johnson. Their status is already dead. Now, no, people don't know that because they be thinking that that's their name and that they have a right and all that stuff.
But as soon as we say our name, we're done, right?
Yeah, if you say their name,
I mean, as long as we're using our.
but not yours. See,
our
soon you say
European
possessive.
names.
See the point? See the point?
As
Soon
long
as
as we
you
use
claim,
their European names, we're done.
that's why they branded you. You see?
But after we.
So what would you say, like, you know, authorized?
You would say,
person?
I am. Now you understand what the X relation is.
Right. I am the living.
I am the living, breathing, sentient man.
Guys.
And you are the Bay or ill, right? Authorized representative for my estate.
Right.
Freddie Jones, whatever it is in all capital letters, and anything, small case, uppercase, misprint, anything that sounds like that, my estate. Is there anyone that has a claim on my estate? Declare yourself.
That's
how it's going.
That's what I wanted you to say.
There you go.
Okay.
See, meaning that once you understand what you're being shown and understand it's in law, if you think, you'd recognize protocol yourself. It would be, you'd have to think. Now, whoa, now you're thinking, you're being forced to think.
So basically you go in and you form the contract and let them.
You don't form a contract. They assume that there's a contract, and what you tell them, Clearfield Doctrine. If somebody got a contract against my estate, that's what the charge is, produce it. That's what discovery is all about.
Okay.
Corpus delicti, injured party. I mean, this stuff is not new. You see, our concepts, our responses and actions. And what usually we start talking about, well, see, my McDonald's job.
Yeah.
We start talking like that. And then my mom gave $50 this morning I had to spend for lunch. And see, and then I'm getting another. You already making an agreement that you're gonna make some payments.
Yep, you're
You
right.
ain't making payments. What you talking about? You talking about my trust. Did I ask you to go in there? Did you get permission? You got an estate or trust, and somebody start talking about something that's in your trust, that's called trespass, ain't it? Now you create liability. At the bottom, they don't even want to say your name.
So you were saying earlier about the international treaty, you said that it's required to take care
I'm
of.
gonna show you the man. I gotta see this. See if you know yourself. You will claim that what applies to you.
Oh.
If you don't know yourself, you're not gonna claim that applies to you, are you? Are you?
But it tastes like meat. And cheese.
I don't know why I keep missing this.
It smells good. I'm very happy to eat. How is it?
I see you looking over
Is
here.
this the attorney? Is it good?
This is delicious. I'm over here thinking this is so delicious.
So it's the meat I made?
Wow. Hey,
It's all vegetables.
Now, here you go, look. Civil inter mortuus, right? Now, this is what all them marching, praying, civil rights guys know about the people, won't tell them, right? So they marching around making fools of themselves, incompetent, making claims and they don't even know what their legal status is. Civil inter mortuus, civilly dead. Dead in the view of the law, the condition of one who has lost his civil rights and capacities and is accounted dead in law. Now, do you understand appropriate persona? Why that must be in order for this not to be? I mean, see what becomes obvious? Once you understand these things, what you should be doing is obvious. Meaning that if you understand that status is everything, it becomes obvious that you got to be in your proper person. You must be in honor. You can't walk into any venue in dishonor. You're already in dishonor as soon as you walk in here. Now, the opposite of that is this.
ooh,
There you go. Thank you, Dr. Nadia.
You're so welcome. Does anybody else want anything? You want a cake?
Sorry.
If you don't want it, I'll take it.
Now, this is the opposite of civil inter mortuus. And the civil rights leaders don't tell the people this is what they're seeking, right? In full life. Continuing in both physical and civil existence. That is neither actually dead nor civil inter mortuus. Isn't it opposite? Isn't it obvious?
use that in a sentence, my brother.
Huh?
In full life, how would you use that?
Just what it is.
To
That's
say,
why
I'm here in full life?
I'm a living, sentient man. National. And I ain't Dred Scott. They're my appropriate, proper person. Now you see what's on the papers? And it says appropriate persona, Sue George, Sue Heritage, appropriate persona. In other words, if you don't declare your rights, they hold that you've abandoned them.
As soon as you do that, right then there,
It starts messing their processes up.
yeah, then they're like, this brother.
Because they can't go into your trust. No, but they can't.
And then they ask them who has an infraction.
No.
When
What living man or woman, because a corporation can't argue, can't speak. And the state said he did, the state can't talk. You can stop that. That's a private, for-profit, corporate entity that can't speak, can't breathe, can't be injured. Who's the living man that has a claim? Corpus delicti.
So the corporation can't speak.
Corpus
That means
delicti.
the bank can't speak against your
There
trust.
you go.
Ding, 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 ding.
Now, usually why I did that, discovery, what the banks, persons who are doing business. I've always said, always talk about the living person first, doing business as.
Well, that falls into, right now, they're coming after me, taxes. They can't.
Now, they're like saying, the guy coming at me from the corner with a gun for taxes. He can't. Yes, he can. The issue is how do you respond? Now, did you put your house in trust? Well, it's already banked. See,
Yeah.
that's why I didn't trust it. See, we have to become proactive. If we don't become proactive, the statuses that I'm showing you is what our problem is. This information is to prepare people to get them out of the civil living mortuus. But if they don't act on it, it's like, all right, Dr. Naila went hooked us up, right?
Uh-huh.
Now say, so we hungry, right? So we say, hey George, man, let's run around going to the restaurant, man. I got $5. How much you got? I got 2 cents. And he say, yeah, we need some sandwiches, but I ain't spending mine. You ain't spending yours either? We all standing outside the store because ain't nobody getting no sandwiches. Likewise, if you have rights and you don't claim or don't exercise them, you abandon them. And this is why you hear, and you always hear this when people say, what occurs with people who don't know their rights? They don't have them. Does it mean that they don't have them? That they're not available to them? That does not what it means. That means if you don't exercise it, you've abandoned it. And if you don't know your rights, you don't have any. So if you go into the store and you start biting on the fruits and stuff like that, they tell you, pay, and you gotta pay for that. You gotta give something for it. And then you tell them, I don't have nothing in my pockets. You gotta come up with something. Same thing. Somebody breaks your rights, you declare what your rights are. If you don't know them, like going to the store picking up a little bread and you ain't walking past cash register. It's a different scenario, but in that nature.
We'll get that truck to help me.
Mm-hmm. Come to the embassy.
I'm coming.
I'm telling them to come to the embassy.
So what, you mean tomorrow?
We got the trip tomorrow.
Yeah, you know, I wanted to go, but they said that last week, 1 o'clock, the cutting date for the $25. I wanted to go.
Oh.
You can still come follow, but